Readers, have you ever set out to solve a problem and it seemed that those problems just kept multiplying? I remember there was a time when I tried to rescue some cats, and as soon as I did that, they started having all sorts of health problems, which led to late night trips to the emergency room to get them cared for. And just as that seemed to be resolving itself, all of a sudden I realized that I'm actually allergic to cats, which of course made for an even bigger problem in the long run. You know, books can be like that too. Maybe you've read the first Harry Potter book or seen the first Harry Potter movie. In the end, he finds what he's looking for, but in doing so, he also releases a certain bad guy that ends up being the entire problem in the second book and movie. Readers, today I want to teach you that as you tackle more complicated books, you will run into multiple problems and plot lines. You will find it helpful to use charts, timelines, and other graphic organizers in your notes to track those multiple problems and plot lines. Readers, I'm familiar with a book series called the Dragon Slayers Academy, and in the first book, there are several key characters that actually face multiple problems each. You'll notice in the chart that I chose to track the character, each of the individual problems that they faced, the solution or change that took place as a result of these problems, and then also how the story ended in regards to the problem. As I look at this chart, I can actually use this information to talk or think more deeply about the book. This information helps me analyze these characters and the book overall in a more sophisticated manner. Now I want you to try to practice this important work by thinking about the familiar tale, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Go ahead and think about what the problem in this story is. Feel free to pause the video if you need a minute. Okay, now if we were all in the same room together and I asked you what the problem in this story was, chances are we would get several different answers, because the reality is, if you think about it long enough, there are several problems in the story of Goldilocks. Making a chart like the one I showed you earlier helps us to track those problems. It would be easy to think that Goldilocks' only problem was the bears, but in reality, she starts out lost in the forest. That's her first problem. Then she found the bear's house, which seemed to be a solution, but at the end of the book, she had to run away from it. She was still lost after all that happened. Other problems that Goldilocks faced included being hungry, needing to let her food settle, and being tired. And then, of course, there are the bears who faced their own problems, starting when the porridge wasn't quite the right temperature. Readers, do you see how we could already have a much deeper conversation about the well-known tale of Goldilocks based on simply tracking the multiple problems in the story? I hope that you will try to apply this to your own reading as well. Readers, so far in our fantasy unit, you have learned so much about becoming a sophisticated reader of fantasy books. Remember, in the first lesson, we talked about researching the setting and asking the question, who has power here and how do we know? Mrs. Serna Fraga taught you how important it was to learn alongside the main character. And today, we talked about different ways to keep track of multiple problems and how important that is. Now, practice it in your own reading, today and always. Off you go.